Hello and welcome to the Fundamentals of SQL course. We are now in the joins section of our course, and we're going to be focusing on this lesson, aliasing. So the big thing with aliasing is that it's kind of temporarily renaming your columns or your tables inside your query. And this makes your queries easier to read, especially with complex joins and subqueries and self-joins. It reduces the typing required when you are writing out your query, and it only exists for that query. So here's the general syntax using an alias. So we would select our column name, and then we would write out as, and then we would give it a name. And then when we call our table name and we want to give our table name an alias, we would say from our table, and then we would just write out our table name that we want to alias it as. So let's use the rental table to practice aliasing columns in our table. So let's identify the rental rate and return date where the rental date is not null. So we're getting values. We're getting all the values that are available. So let's say we want to alias the rental date as rent and the return date as return. So what we would do is we would write out our select statement and we would select our rental date as rent, comma, return date as return. We're saying this is from the DVD rental database where our rent is not null. So you're going to notice that this syntax and this kind of format of our SQL queries is definitely different than what we've been doing before. And you're going to notice that in the joins, it's going to look a lot cleaner. This is just a best practice that I've learned, is that when I use these longer select statements, whether I'm aliasing or joining tables, that I break apart each section of my SQL statement. So my select statement, I'll return, and then I'll tab out rental date, and I'll make sure that my as, if I'm aliasing, all of my as statements are aligned. And then all of my new aliases are aligned. So I can identify easily what columns are what and what they're named. You'll notice that my comma is also before the next item in our select statement, the next column. So I do this because if I forget a comma on the end and I delete a column or an entire row of a SQL query, I'm going to be missing now a comma and that row. So I'm going to get an error, and then I'm going to have to go back and look through my SQL query. Well, where is my comma? But if we put them at the front of our query on each line, at each row, if we miss one, we can always easily go back and find out where it is. So this is just best practice. We're going to do a lot more formatting when we get into the inner left and right joins, and especially the self joins. But this was just a small introduction to aliasing and formatting. Remember that aliases make your queries easier to read, and it reduces the typing required, and it only exists for that query. Thanks, and I will see you in the next lecture.